They want to onboard the next billion users to crypto. I'll go first, and then let the rest of the crew go. My name is Mene Mazarakis. I'm an investment partner at Chapter One. I lead our crypto and infrastructure investments. My background is in product. I was an early PM on the crypto team at Facebook, building out the digital wallet for Libra. And then I led election products for Instagram, everything around the US 2020 election. And then most recently joined Chapter One as the first hire to spin up our crypto fund. I'll let you go.
I'm David, lead growth at Phantom. We are a friendly wallet focusing on making NFTs and DeFi easy to access. We are lucky to have millions of users as the leading wallet on the Solana blockchain. And we're really excited to support ETH and Matic in the coming weeks. So yeah, really excited to be here.
Hey, I'm Rocco, one of the co-founders of Spruce, working on decentralized identity and data. Work primarily with wallets on making user-friendly flows for things like sign-in and working with your own identity.
Hi, I'm Will. I'm from Wallet Connect. I'm the COO there. We connect wallets. So started in the Ethereum space, now multi-chain. We're very lucky to have thousands of integrations now in 206 territories. So it's very exciting.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for being part of the panel. I guess I'll take a step back here, and when we look at adoption, what do you guys think are some of the top bottlenecks for getting new users exposed to wallets, and in terms of specific product features that you think have the most opportunity to grow for wallets?
I'm sure I can take that one. I think people need a motivation to download a wallet. They're most of the time not going to try to download MetaMask or Phantom or any other wallet just to try the wallet. A lot of functionality that people think about with crypto is already handled by centralized exchanges. And so I think from Phantom in particular, we've seen a ton of upside and adoption stemming from the NFT trend. So that's a really good reason to force function to have people to download and go through the trouble of self-custody. And so that's something that we're really, really focused on. But DeFi also is obviously really important as well. And just in terms of future features, I would say seed phrases are kind of not something that really we see as a long-term way for people to really custody their crypto. There'll always be a part of the wallet experience in the crypto experience, but I think there's going to be a lot of ways that we can make it more accessible and more akin to what people are used to seeing. MPC is a really exciting technology. I don't know the full technical details of it, but it does allow for recovery, but also maintains the principles of self-custody and this decentralization. And it's something that we're really interested in. And so yeah, I think that's a top thing I would say is something that for people to look at.
Yeah, I would definitely say a lot of it's around experiences too. A lot of the things you could do with a wallet right now primarily circle around the space in particular, but there's limited opportunities outside of our own space. We're starting to see more integrations with large app providers like Twitter, like Instagram, for example, where you're just starting to kind of breach into the mainstream with these existing apps that it might be the folks who are used to this stuff using it first, but then you'll have folks who haven't used it yet that might be curious enough to be like, okay, what's going on here? Like, how could I also use this? Namely, the onboarding experiences are getting better over time with all the wallets out there creating better experiences around that. But I think the more we have existing large apps with massive user bases outside of the Web3 space start to offer these kinds of experiences, I think it might be a better hook for kind of that mainstream adoption path. I think just yesterday, Shopify just announced for creators things around tools for bringing in Web3 to existing Shopify storefronts, having folks sign in with Ethereum, so it's been good to see. But those are kind of the draws, is that we'll all see that and be like, great, we could access these services using wallets we use already, but then you'll have this group of curious people who aren't familiar with any of this be like, okay, what's going on here? This is big enough. I trust this brand enough that's integrated this technology. What's the next step for me here? How could I start using this?
At the risk of agreeing radically with everyone, firstly, absolutely UX UI. I mean, that's at the baseline. I'm very, very glad to have Phantom here. Happy customer, they're awesome. I do think we're at kind of at that interesting stage. I cannot claim this, but someone explained it as email the other day. We still write emails like a letter, but we're comfortable with the @ symbol. you know, so we haven't quite worked out where on that sliding scale of like, you know, how we're going to experience it, but it's not going to be seed phrases. That's got to go, and so you've got to get to a point where people are comfortable. On the big adoption, yep, Shopify's an investor in us. We've got Twitter and all sorts of guys using us. I think the big blocker there, at the risk of like lowering the tone, is clarity on regulation, especially here in the US. Because I think what we experience, say Twitter, they use us, they just want to check what's on the PFP. Pretty quickly, any of those guys start trying to figure out, could I do a payment? And as soon as they ask, could we do a payment, they kind of want to have a ranking of wallets. And that's not to say that there's like good and bad. There's like wallets that are going to be compliant to banking standards, and there are wallets that are going to be privacy preserving. But the super privacy preserving ones will only be available, like the market will dictate it, so the regulators are kind of almost confusing it, because super privacy preserving apps. But if you want to use, you know, Shopify or any named large brand, and it's every single brand, because we get the inbound, they're all really exciting. They fundamentally understand what's useful here, but they kind of want to know, like, what's a good or bad wallet, but that's not what they mean. What they mean is a wallet that's going to enable us to make a payment in the territories we exist in.
I think regulation is definitely a large area that people are caring a lot more about, especially as crypto is it's a global phenomenon. People in all these territories are using crypto, and we need to adhere to regulatory standards that are very local.
This is what I mean, like, we're not in the business of, we don't want to be the regulator, we're just a piece of software that connects stuff, but we're right in the middle of what we can see. So, of course, you've got to get the top 6 regulators in the world, of which number 1 is here, comfortable, or else this just doesn't go anywhere. But trying to do it, if you think how Stripe's grown, it goes territory by territory, right? But like, we've got our map, we know where everyone is. I'm sure like other wallets are the same. It's all over the world. This is a global problem, so you've got to start first principles, you've got to get together. And there is some good, encouraging work going on there, but you've got to start first principles about what are you trying to figure out. What are you trying to stop? You know, financial criminality, misuse of people's PII, and treating customers fairly. That's fundamentally what all regulators care about.
Shifting a little to the wallet market, I'm curious what you guys think are, what the wallet landscape will look like in the next 6 to 18 months. Do you guys think we'll have more of a browser market where there's an aggregation of dominant wallets, or is it going to look like the fintech market where there's a lot of smaller competitors, applications that are spinning up their own embedded wallets and trying to own the relationship with their customers?
I do think it tends to be a winner-take-all type market where there will be a few major players. And I think part of that is largely because we think of wallets as single solitary pieces of software, but you know, with Wallet Connect and all these infrastructure players, like it's much more of a networked product. Like you not only are you using a wallet to hold and store your crypto, but you're using to connect to dApps. And it's really hard as a wallet to make sure you properly work with all of these dApps all together. And so between troubleshooting, between just first-class experiences, really nice integrations, users want to use a wallet they know that will work with the dApps that they want to use. And that's not going to happen for dozens of dApps. Really interested to see where the browser market goes. I think hopefully crypto isn't relegated as an extension within a larger browser, for too much longer. And so I think there's an exciting future there. But it's also hard to convince people to download or switch internet browsers just for crypto. So I think we're still going to be in this middle ground for at least this short term. But it really is a game of trust, and I think, and I just hats off to MetaMask. I think they don't have the best reputation sometimes, but I think a lot of work goes into it, and you just know that it works. And so that's why they're still so dominant.
I would also probably agree there that you probably have a handful of winners in particular, especially because when users are coming and thinking about wallets, they're thinking it in the form of experiences. That's my first step into this space. It's my first step to taking my first actions, and that first action is going to be different for everyone. It's going to be, besides funding the wallet being the first step, but the second step being maybe it's signing something that is just a message. Maybe it's trading something. Maybe it's buying their first NFT. But the user is going to find the wallet that does all of these actions best because they know their journey isn't going to end there. And wallets, I think, are going to start to aggregate services more directly within the wallet. So you're not going to these different browser-based services to trade something. It's right there in the wallet. You're not going to another browser exchange to move things across chains. It's right there in the wallet. You may in the future might not even go to an NFT marketplace. You might be able to just search it from a wallet and be able to kind of handle it right there. I think wallets are the most powerful things because it's always the thing you will come back to no matter what interaction you're taking in this space. That's always going to be there for you. And kind of agreeing too where I think in the beginning it was very easy to have these dApps that had the extension-based model with wallets, that it became a first good touch point, especially as we're working on web apps. But I think the technology has gotten way better that we'll see a lot more proliferation of mobile kind of becoming more dominant. Hats off to Wallet Connect for really enabling this way early on that mobile wallets can connect to all these dApps regardless of the setting that they're in. But I think that's kind of where it's moving towards, especially for a lot of more mainstream folks. We used browser extensions early with Space because it was the most convenient way to do things, but the real world, mobile apps are pretty much dominant.
Yeah, I think I somewhat agree. I obviously, and the reason is I think there will be dominant winners in each territory and potentially dominant winners in each industry. I think the best equivalent, at the risk of painting a target on the industry's back, is banks. There is Chase, Bank of America, HSBC, some of them are transnational, but there's also USAA and their obvious connection with that community, and there's the Bank of Southern Ohio for farmers. There's credit unions, so it kind of that's what we think. I mean, there are 6,000 languages in the world. If I think anyone should just go and look at the UX of WeChat. And realize that it's not just it needs to be translated into other languages, there are fundamentally different UX needs depending on what geography you're in, what language you want, how what your cultural feeling is around money and owning it. There is differences, there are nuances, there are similarities. So there will be Chase level winners, 100%. But there will also be a long tail of small providers. And in the same way with those long tail of small providers, they may not all build the infrastructure themselves. There will be the emergence of Jack Henrys of the world, without question. So,
kind of like super apps in a way, like talking about WeChat where you have everything vertically integrated.
Yeah, we have a team member from Shanghai, and she kind of called our BS one day, and she was like, have you ever looked at WeChat? Oh yeah, so she handed it to us, and as a result, we were kind of well, yeah, it's a fundamentally different experience to having your Chase app. So there will be diversity, but there will be some dominant winners in each territory for sure.
Cool. No, I definitely agree with that. One thing that I feel like a lot of people in the wallet space are thinking about are sustainable revenue models and how we plan to capture value in a space where effectively wallets are a massive portal into Web3. So I'm curious how you guys think about business models and if there is any experimentation you guys have found interesting. Right now, a lot of the business model for MetaMask, for example, is around swaps. And I'm curious if you guys think there's more idea generation in this design space.
Yeah, so I think MetaMask, proving a very nice precedence with how they've done swaps, and Phantom has adopted something similar where we collect a small fee. What we're seeing here is at Phantom especially is that people crave that convenience, and so people aren't necessarily swapping a ton on desktop, but when they're on mobile and they're on the go, there's a huge benefit to not having to go into your dApp browser, log into some DEX, and do a quick swap when things are volatile, to say the least. So, what we're seeing is the emergence of what we say, what we're calling at Phantom, premium or convenient transactions, where, you're on mobile and, you're going to do a quick swap, but there's also a lot of functionality that we're looking at with NFTs. Phantom is one of the leading wallets that offer integrated NFT listing management with our biggest marketplace on Solana called Magic Eden. But we're also going to be, looking to expand that to other NFT marketplaces. And so at Phantom, you can list your NFT, edit your price, and cancel your listing as well. all integrated in a really nice experience. And so there's potential ways that you can think about how we might be able to monetize this down the line. And that's kind of how we're approaching just all these, what we consider like value-added convenient transactions with an eye towards mostly on mobile.
With monetization and wallets, as a bit of an outsider on the wallet side, the one thing I have seen is definitely like if you're offering kind of that financial service within it and taking a fee is a great model like MetaMask has been pioneering with the swap stuff. And on the kind of identity side with wallets, I see kind of a big role with wallets in the future, helping users not just manage their assets, but their identity. Like when you think of your own physical wallet, I don't think most folks have two different wallets for their driver's license and their credit cards. I think typically they'll use the same vessel for it. And there might be a future in which wallets start to offer differentiated services around the management and custody of certain information for that user, whether it's stored between the wallet and the user, or the wallet is a trusted custodian of that information on behalf of the user. I think that'd be a pretty good service in the future once wallets are used more widely for identity. Where imagine, you have your credentials that come with you alongside your assets, and the wallet is one of the custodians of that data and providing that service for that user, but allowing the user to eject at any time, much like wallets do today, where you can take your keys with you and migrate if you do wish so. So I think in the future, you're going to have this very much at the start of it around our existing Web3 actions, trading and all that, but then in the future, kind of these differentiated services around identity and data, I think are going to start to crop up, especially as that becomes more of a widespread part of it.
Yeah, just double click in that area. How do you view identity playing a role in the post-transaction experiences for people in wallets? So how people can connect based on previous activities, shared ownership, and then the different business models that you're seeing there.
So like, you mean around like what wallets are enabling now with respect to identity, or like what's kind of the potential?
Yeah, and how you kind of see Spruce playing a role there.
Yeah, on the Spruce side, a lot of it for us is in the beginning part is allowing services to let people sign in using their blockchain accounts, which wallets are just kind of the first vessel to do so. So when it comes to just that basic action of like logging into a service, you're signing a message in a wallet. It's a service that the wallet already offers and can offer better UX around, is just that simple effect. In the future, you could potentially have services where users are able to kind of bring data with them, whether it's credentials around their social media accounts that they bring with them, their profiles they bring with them, their preferences that they can bring with them, all potentially stored by the wallet. I think a lot of this will live off-chain, but I think wallets will play kind of a larger role there in terms of service offerings. Kind of emerging at the moment, but wallets are kind of the cornerstone of all of this happening because, again, for all of these things that users are doing with their wallets, that wallet is still the ultimate touch point for all of them. Everything they're signing, whether it's transactions or messages to sign in, is still the wallet at the centerpiece of all this.
Yeah, and I've been kind of digging into it more recently, and we all have different identities is the interesting thing. So at the moment, it's like, hey, this is how I'm going to get KYC'd, but you've got a LinkedIn, you've got your Instagram, you've got all sorts of different identities that you currently control. If they really do start converging on your wallet, and you want, firstly, that to be as safe as possible, but also to have the choice what I don't want my bank to see my LinkedIn profile. It's none of their business when they sign me up. But if you want that, at that point, it feels like it'll be subscription-based rather than, so there'll be stuff that'll be transaction-based that looks more like finance, and there'll be stuff that's how do you pay for identity stuff right now? Generally, I think subscription or per usage, right?
Imagine a world where, if you went to a new service that you wanted to disclose some kind of information with, whether it was if it was low assurance, like a LinkedIn profile is way different than a KYC thing. If that wallet can spawn a new key pair just for that interaction, load it with just the right information, just that LinkedIn profile, for example, and not the KYC credential, decorrelate it for you, allow you to access that service, and then kind of as soon as you end everything, it blows up. And that's a great service. It keeps kind of users at the forefront of it, it keeps things private, and you just avoid correlation risks. And again, I think wallets are going to play a huge role there, especially in the form of these different profiles, because even on a more low assurance level, you on Facebook might be different from you on Twitter. You just have different versions of yourself on these things, and wallets will be kind of the arbitrator there. Totally.
One area that I was curious about is the different ways that wallets are being used today for different applications. So we're seeing gaming wallets, social wallets, kind of verticalization, wallets for digital artifacts, digital collectibles, and then we also see the portfolio style wallets. I'm curious, as more people get into crypto and there's more utility around what you can do with the wallet, do you see the social and gaming wallets overcoming the more portfolio style viewing experience of those wallets?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to really see gaming take off, and I think the real question within, I would say, wallets is that, what does the wallet for those games really look like? I think with Axie and their whole experience with MetaMask, they ended up, going into their own chain and building out their own wallet infrastructure. I think it's very hard for games to take off when they have a very clunky onboarding process. You have to wait for, MoonPay or some fiat on-ramp. MoonPay is great, by the way, but it doesn't work in New York. It takes like 4 or 5 days. It's really hard as an onboarding process. So I think the line between what a wallet is and what a wallet's not will really continue to get more blurry, I would say, with probably a more focus on onboarding and just making sure that, hey, you're not exposed to all the complexities around seed phrases. So I think wallets will become lighter potentially, rather than the full-fledged experience. And then, yeah, I mean, I think between social, gaming, and all of these different vertical use cases, really curious to see how it plays out. I think, at Phantom, we're hoping to be flexible enough to kind of handle your needs for both. But, we'll remain to see how it turns out.
Related to that, I want to see a world where part of me, I'm still kind of stuck on not believing in like the purpose-specific wallets. I want to see a world, for example, like where that wallet that is one of the kind of winners. Let's say we have this world where gaming really takes off, where as soon as you're in that mode and using that game, the wallet itself, and this goes back to like the services wallets can offer, just like reskins itself on the fly to that game, and the UI just encompasses everything from that game and becomes just an extension of the game itself. As soon as you exit that mode, the wallet has the ability to be like, all right, we're out of it. We're back to regular wallet mode. And I wonder if that kind of adaptability in the future will be the answer to the question that all these kind of purpose-specific wallets are building towards, is like, if the wallet itself can just morph towards these use cases as the user is in that experience itself. So that's something I'd love to see, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, gaming's my Achilles heel. The team kill me because I'm not a gamer, but everyone else is. But I think that depending on what the use case is, yeah, we'll dictate it. Like, we currently have a couple of team members. We got one in Argentina, one in Turkey at the moment. And we've told them to go and do like field research to find out what's going on the other end of remittance corridors, because what we have a very clear hunch from the data is that people aren't just sending the money, they're staying within the dollarization is happening at a speed that's kind of extraordinary, and we're trying to figure out, is it just happening wallet to wallet, or is there the emergence of like a first principles payment infrastructure? I'm afraid that's my background, so to a hammer everything looks like a nail, but it's kind of super interesting when you have certain countries where up to 30% of the population is now transacting in dollars and on dollars, and I don't think they necessarily want the same wallet that a gamer does, or that someone living in Philadelphia with an interest in NFTs wants. I think they are probably going to be different. So,
I think another aspect, just thinking more on it, is that we haven't mentioned just yet is security. Security is such a huge issue with all these high-profile hacks that are happening. I do think it's unlikely that you're going to want all these valuable assets spread across all these different wallets with security that hasn't necessarily been proven out yet. So I think with almost like the hurdles around trust and being confident in the wallet that you're using is safe enough, it is a barrier to entry for some of these brand new vertical wallets, but perhaps you're holding less assets there or something like that, so that could make a different dynamic there.
Yeah, and what if, like to this, you want to have your wallet, imagine as a user, you can start off in pro mode or light mode. Like in light mode, it's like, yeah, we're kind of taking care of the experience for you. There's some kind of key management on behalf of the service, and they're making it very easy, and that's your trust model, is that you're, as a user, comfortable with kind of custodial services, and then you kind of switch over to pro mode, where it's like, all right, here's a 12-word phrase. You lose it, you lose it, you'll lose it. But like that kind of moving into it is that you have these like, okay, what if it's like a sliding scale on like your trust model versus the kind of experience that you want? Because especially folks diving in for the first time, throwing a seed phrase at them and telling them go and manage it, it's not really going to work out. But just seeing wallets kind of evolve towards that could be very useful, especially towards the emerging use cases and the existing ones.
I'm glad that you brought up security. I feel like security is it's really the P0 of the wallet experience. If you don't have security, none of the product really makes sense. How are you guys trying to make it clear to users about all the security built into the wallet? I think this panel is really interesting because we have a lot of different parts of the wallet infrastructure stack, from the front end to identity and the back end. How do we go about educating users about security and trust in a way that makes people feel comfortable about using a wallet in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot of challenges here. You know, you don't want to scare people when they're downloading your product, but at the same time, you know, even what to call a seed phrase or mnemonic or secret recovery phrase, it's just a headache that we're all really just trying to work through. I would say that there's just so many misconceptions around, like, oh, if I have a hardware wallet, I'm perfectly safe, or, you know, I think there's a lot that we need to kind of get comfortable with as an industry and like educate folks on. But I almost think it's almost on the wallet products themselves and the ecosystem to just make it hard to lose all your money or to get hacked. I think one thing that at Phantom that we're doing is, you know, trying to, what we do right now is actually simulate every transaction that you're about to sign. So we run the preview and then we show you, hey, this is what's leaving your wallet, this is what's entering your wallet. I think things like that, when we're operating at a certain scale with network effects and really being able to identify scams, proactively preventing or blocking transactions that we know are malicious is going to be a big part of that. I think education and onboarding can only go so far into really teaching people how to be safe. And I think we really need to get towards the situation where when you sign up for a bank, you're not worried about it being robbed. I think we just need to get there. It's not going to be like, this is how you protect your money at this bank, you know. So I think we have some work to do.
I completely agree with it being a requirement of the service to provide those guarantees and not just say, here's how to be safe. Yeah, go on your way. Like, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And the work that I think we work on a lot at Spruce is figuring out open standards for things and how that then translates to wallets. And I always, you know, hats off to anyone else working on open standards, because that's how you get a bunch of different folks adopting the same interfaces to make it very common across, you know, what a user is using. Part of this is whenever a user is taking an action to sign a message to sign in, before the sign-in with Ethereum work, it could have been anything. It could have been a service telling the user, here, sign this message that's just a random set of letters and numbers. Here, sign a message. This is the magic login message. Sign it and you'll be logged in. Instead, how do you make sure that that message is consistent across any service wanting to log someone in? So then wallets are like, okay, great, I know what to expect now. That the wallet can say, oh, that's a valid sign-in with Ethereum message. Now we can give the user this whole sign-in interface. Because if everyone's using different messages to sign people in, even though it's the same action, it's just going to be different across the board. And there's a lot of terrible ones, and the first step is getting a common message format, just an example of like interfaces. And then the second step is that wallets can then provide those interfaces, but only because there's a common standard for everyone to work towards. So standards work is like chewing glass, but when it happens, you kind of end up with these outcomes, so it's been really good so far, but specifically on making sure there's common standards for things like even transaction generation, because if all the wallets can benefit from that, all the users of all these wallets know what to expect. When you sign up for a bank, I'm here, it's going to store my money, it's not going to get robbed. Great, how did that happen? Well, there's like a lot of underlying, you know, miasma to kind of go through with all those processes.
Yeah, I mean, like seed phrases, everyone knows just, I mean, it's kind of relatively illogical that one of the safest things you can do is just write it out and put it in your mum's garage and then make sure she lives in another country. So that's where mine is. But like, yeah. And I trust her, which is lucky. Yeah, like standards is absolutely, I mean, we've focused on that a lot on the chain agnostic. I think there is a security point about not getting, like, somebody not taking your stuff. There's also like, you've also got to trust that it's going to work, right? So that's probably where we sit. Like, part of trust is that you're not going to get the thing taken away. The other is that you got to trust it's going to work everywhere, right? So we've been working on chain agnostic improvement proposals recently, just basically to move to a point, like, it would feel quite weird in the non-crypto world if the only way for you to buy a coffee was to directly link your bank account to the cafe. Like that doesn't seem logical, but there's really rational and logical reasons why that's been the case, and fantastic businesses who have always been secure about doing that. But we've now got to like move to the point where, you know, like you live in a world where you don't even think about Cash App and Visa and MasterCard and all these things that just connect your bank remotely to their bank, and there's no debate about it. Even a layer below that, like I hope most of this room doesn't know who Jack Henry, FIS, and Fiserv are, because you should live your lives more interestingly, but you use them every single day underneath your bank. We have to move to a world where that becomes irrelevant. And that's about like, because if you don't trust it, if things break, if the connection with some like wallet doesn't work after a while, you lose the trust, and then, you know, it's where your money is, right? And so we have to earn trust, not just on, I'm not going to get robbed, and I haven't got to be told to do this really, really weird thing, but also that it just works.
Yeah, I also want to shout out Wallet Connect for being one of the founding members of the Chain Agnostic Standards Alliance. If anyone doesn't know CASA, I highly recommend looking it up. And also for folks really diving into the stuff to see exactly how this has made the Ethereum improvement process, EIPs, just like dive in and see how these open standards form. And especially for the chain agnostic stuff, CASA is great because it's been forming a lot of open standards for even how like wallet addresses are interpreted. So yeah.
I don't work on that myself, like much smarter members of the team do that, but thanks very much.
One thing I'm curious about in the context of where we're at in the market right now, what are your teams thinking about in terms of product priorities and how you guys are adapting to like different user preferences around crypto, trust? Yeah, how are your product teams thinking about product innovation right now?
I think we're really focused on supporting all the different multiple blockchain ecosystems right now as one big work stream. You know, so we're launching ETH, we're launching Matic. We think the future is multi-chain, and so that's really important. But I think in parallel, we're always thinking about onboarding. There should be easy ways for you to give crypto to someone. There should be easy ways to sign up for a crypto wallet, you know, really, really quickly. And so we're very much focused on new users in that way, and just becoming more flexible. So yeah, I think those are probably the two main priorities we have. In addition to, I would say, NFTs. I think we see a big future there. In terms of new users coming to crypto and downloading wallets, they're almost always engaging with NFTs as a first or second touch point. And that is super exciting to us just in terms of all the different product possibilities that we can really build on for that. So yeah, I think that's like a high level summary.
I think from our end at Spruce, a lot of it deals with enabling developers to incorporate wallet-based workflows and signing in whenever possible and trying to figure out what might be the barrier to entry for them. So a lot of traditional developers, for example, might want like an email flow as the first touch point for a user and then slowly onboard them to signing in using their wallet. So anywhere there's a developer that's interested in incorporating these workflows, even if they come from the traditional world and want ways in which they can use this, leverage these user bases, have these users start to explore their products, or even introduce their existing user bases to this world. Is kind of meeting them wherever they're at with that, having these like wallet connection experiences and signing in and then using the wallet in those services is what what we're focused on and thinking about.
Because we sit at the kind of messaging layer, like we're less interested actually in the dollar value transacted. Our focus is always where there's like high frequency, and then trying to figure out where that what kind of use cases is driving that high frequency, so that we can scale with the industry, right? And then come to understand, you know, is it, you know, cross-chain transactions? Is it, as I say, these like very low dollar-denominated transactions happening in a lot of emerging markets? Is it the remittance space? Is it in the gaming space? Are we still continuing to scale ready for, like, the NFT boom hit a bust, but I think if anyone thinks it's gone to zero, then they just haven't spent time with anyone currently still working in the NFT space, because it's reduced down to what's actually valuable, and then when this comes back out next time, it'll be genuinely useful tool sets for communities. So we're always trying to work out what, like the number of just literal volume. I mean, someone can send a message that's worth $1 million or $1, and we just see a message, right? So we're trying to figure out where the high frequency is at this point.
And just to conclude the panel, I'm curious, what are the most optimistic stories that you guys are seeing in the wallet front end and infrastructure space that really keeps you excited about the future? I think we're all looking for stories of growth, but also trust in infrastructure, and what is really driving you guys these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think wallets are such an exciting place to be in crypto. I think with OpenSea, Uniswap, once you're a dApp and you become big enough, you start looking at, well, should I build a wallet? And I think it's really just going to become a super competitive, interesting, dynamic space. And it is the gateway to how people experience crypto. I think there's a lot of different potential, and everyone's doing it in a different way. And then you have the emergence of Robinhood and other Web 2 type companies that are also getting into wallets. They might be doing something a little bit more hybrid, where it's not fully decentralized. But I think there's just a lot of innovation, and it's really exciting to see the different strategies play out. So I think optimistic that wallets will continue to be important in the future.
In terms of what's been really exciting is specifically we've had kind of composable ecosystems where we can build anything upon anything, is wallets that are moving more towards like this extension-based model where you can kind of extend a wallet as a developer in any way you can even think of. For me, a lot of that naturally centers around identity and data, like what more can a wallet do? Maybe a wallet becomes like, has like a data vault component to it that acts as an extension to that wallet itself. So I'm really kind of looking more so at the green fields and blue skies of like what developers can do when you have these wallets and the crazy ideas that might come out of it that can live as an extension of the wallet that's being served by some company. So I think that's a really good space for developers, for people in the space with like really brand new emerging ideas but might need just kind of an extra lift from the wallet itself. I think having that blank canvas is super, super cool.
Yeah, and I think the wallet space generally is obviously interesting. That's why we work in it. The two emergent areas we find fascinating is like what the large incumbent brands, like we're consistently interested and surprised how sophisticated their thinking is when they walk in. And I'm like a broken record on the stablecoin thing, but like there's a reason our CTO's in Buenos Aires this weekend trying to figure out like how are we being used, because we can look at the data where currencies are weaker and where we are seeing message volume, and it seems to be on the end of remittance corridors and people not coming out, and that's a deeply fascinating concept that we as an industry are involved in. So.
Amazing. Well, that concludes the wallet panel. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to the panelists. Really enjoyed the conversation, and excited for the future panels. Thanks, guys.